So I'm going to go over the basics of using Screencastify to record your screen activity with or without your webcam. Record your webcam alone, and you can do all this with or without voiceover, and you can also record the sound from your system itself. Now I've created some written instructions if you prefer to do that, but I didn't really want to reinvent the wheel because in these written instructions I link to a really excellent user guide from the company, from Screencastify, and it's very well organized, and it shows you very clearly how every single function works. But what I do in this written version is just to get you up and running very quickly, and then later on, when we get to very specific functions, the really fine points, all I do is really say what those functions do and not necessarily tell you how to do them. However, in this quick tutorial, I will be actually running through those things. So if you prefer to see it and then maybe go back to the written instructions as a backup, that's one way of doing it too. The way to start, you must be in Chrome. Make sure you're in Chrome. You shouldn't be in an incognito window, and you'll go to screencastify.com. There are several ways to get in, but this is probably one of the easier ways from the beginning. Almost all their pages prompt you to add the extension to Chrome, and it'll take you to the Chrome Web Store, and then you'll just choose to add it to Chrome. You'll notice there's a lot of approving and allowing and checking. Sometimes it's duplicated. I wouldn't worry about that. Just kind of keep saying yes. I found that when I did this different ways, I sometimes got different screens. You might notice that down here, it now tells me that it's adding it to Chrome. So hopefully it will be doing that on its own. It's checking something. And it gives me a message that it has been added to Chrome. This turn on sync, I tend not to use that on Chrome because then it means that when you sign into a Chrome program, that it will recognize you and bring your preferences from one computer to another, and I really don't like that kind of thing tracking me, especially because like a lot of people, I use a lot of computers at work. So now you'll see that this arrow has shown up here. So the first time you record, you're always going to start recording from this little Screencastify arrow. So all I do is click on that. It's going to launch that tiny little extension. And then if you're not already logged on to Google, it's going to make you log on to Google. Make sure you log on with amityschools.org, your Google account, because we do now have Screencastify Unlimited, which gives additional functions. You'll notice it's taking me through lots of screens. And finally, I'll get to sign on here. Okay, the permissions, I think people would figure them out because they're pretty intuitive. You're obviously going to want to use your camera and your microphone, your drawing annotation tools. You can always change this for each recording. So I would just click through all these options also. I'm not going to read. As I said, you'll get a lot of messages asking you to allow things, to go to the next. And now it says that we're all ready to go. So now that we're ready to record, we'll click on the pink arrow again. It will launch the program, and then we'll get to make some choices. I list these options in the written instructions. Browser tab means you're only going to be able to record the tab that you're in. You can't go anyplace else. Recording the browser tab has one advantage, which is things will be a little bit closer because it's not recording all this area on top of the tab. Desktop will give you a few choices, and we'll talk about that in a second. Webcam only, that's pretty clear. This would be good for a student or a teacher recording themselves speaking to explain something, but it would only show their webcam. Now, if you wanted to show either a browser tab or a desktop, you can choose to embed your webcam, which means that a little picture of you would appear in a corner. You could move it around, you could toggle it on and off, That's nice. My microphone, I've already used this with it before, so I know that my correct microphone hopefully is chosen. Oh, I guess it isn't. I only have one webcam. This is an issue that I know that a lot of people had with Zoom. You'll probably first want to go into your system settings if you used additional microphones or speakers, and make sure that those are chosen in your basic system settings so that they appear here as options. And at this point, it's going to start recording your screen. But first, since I chose desktop, it's going to give me some more options. It's going to ask me if I want to record the entire screen. Now that means, do I want to record the entire screen, including all the different places and all the applications that I go to? I tend to use that because I tend to hop around a little when I'm showing something. But if a student or you are just showing one thing, then maybe you wouldn't want to choose that. Application window, you would only choose a very specific application. I'm going to choose my entire screen. When I choose the screen or the application window, I have to either double click on it or highlight it and then click share. And now it's going to start recording. And we've started recording the screen. As you can see, the image of my webcam has appeared in the lower right. That's because we enabled that in the initial configuration. You have a stop sharing button on the bottom. And then you also have what we're going to talk about now, which is this annotation toolbar at the bottom. So if you happen to be on a page and you're talking about it, one of the nice things is this thing called a focus mouse, which you can drag around your page and it spotlights different areas. You also have the ability to hide the cursor when you're not moving it. You also have something called highlight clicks, which I like a lot because as you click on a word and hold it, it's quirky. If you click on a word and hold it, there it is. Then you hold down your key and that you can drag that around too. So that's another nice thing. You can toggle your webcam off and on, and I think I'll just leave that off for the moment. You can pause the recording. You can go back at any point if you're on a specific tool to your cursor. You can also annotate whatever you want to do here, and you can erase whatever you've written partially, or if you want to erase every single thing that you've put on the screen, there's something called a wipe screen clear, and that's exactly what it does. And if you want to get rid of this toolbar, you can hide your tools. To get them back, you need to toggle back with a control key. So now, that's really all the tools it offers you while you're recording. We're going to stop sharing and save our recording. So if we click stop sharing, it's going to bring us to a working page. And the first thing it's going to do is to start playing this. So I'm going to stop that so we don't have to watch that again. It gives me all my sharing options on the right. As you can see, because I already logged on to Google Drive, it's ready to share to Google Drive. It's done that automatically. If I just want to do, this is really useful if I'm just doing a really quick tutorial and I just want to get the link out to someone. Look at these 3 steps. This is what you have to do. Then I can just copy the shareable link. If I'm not interested in doing any editing or any fine tuning or anything like that. I have a whole bunch of other share options, which are the usual ones. You can get an embed code, you can bring it right to YouTube, you can share to most of the social media platforms, or you can download as an MP4, which is also really useful. What we're going to talk about now is what to do if you want to further tweak this and edit it, which is kind of nice because as you're working, very often you'll make a mistake. So what you do is give yourself a nice pause, give yourself a lot of a pause in the beginning, a pause at the end, and you can just snip those clips out. So we're going to open the editor now. So this is a case where we've just finished our recording and the open editing page has opened up. We can open it up right here. You see Open Editor, but we don't have to edit things immediately because this is shared and saved to Google Drive, not shared, it's actually saved there, we can always go back to it later. And to do that, we would go back to our little Screencastify arrow in the menu bar, open that up, and there are some options that we didn't look at before, which appear in this little menu here, this drop-down menu. You can view your recordings, or you can open the editor from here. So that's really nice that you don't have to do everything all at once. Going to go back to our open in editor. It'll bring us to a new web page. Everything uses the online platform, and it's starting the video that I had previously recorded. This is a very simple editor. It only gives you a few functions. So let me talk about a few of them now. So one of the first tools we'll look at is the cropping tool. I don't know how often you'll really be using that, but it's really sort of interesting. It's really a zoom, but it zooms for the entire clip. This whole recording is one particular clip. So if we were to click on that, we would then draw a rectangle on this screen. Let's say that we really only want the action that's happening in the middle of the screen. And then when we click done, you can see that in the bottom, it's only showing me that part that I identified in the middle of the screen. I'm going to undo that with my undo arrow. Another option is to simply drag in the beginning and the end. Let's say I left a little of airspace at the beginning and end of my recording, so I've cropped them from the beginning and the end, and I can undo that. And another possibility is cutting a little snippet of something that you want to remove. Now for that, you would listen to it up to a certain point.
You can pause the recording.
And let's say that I've listened to it and I've marked down my times, that I know that I want to clip from here to a little more forward. So I would identify one area. This is the way it works in, I think, other programs like the Windows program for movie editing. And at the point that my cursor is placed here, I then clip on the scissors. It's now removed these and it separated them. And then I would go to the new place where I wanted to cut it, and I would make another clip, and then I can just highlight this. You'll see that it's surrounded by a blue line, and I can just delete it. And I just use my delete button to do that. That's very useful because often in the middle of a recording, something doesn't work. You make a mistake, you fumble your words, so you don't have to stop recording. You just give yourself a nice pause of a little bit of silence and continue. And then when you go back, you can easily identify that and fix it. If you want to add text, you can put a text box up here. And there's some options here for formatting your text. One thing you must know is that this recording is one clip, so the text box will go throughout the entire clip. If I only want text in a specific part of it, then what I really should do is to go back and start cutting up into pieces my recording, and then just put little pieces of text in those little pieces. At this point, you have a few other options. You can add another clip. So you can either upload. I haven't really identified which file formats it accepts. I'm assuming it accepts MP4. I don't know about any others, but it does have some very good help. So you could Google that in a second, or you can upload it right from Google Drive, and it's going to take you first to that Screencastify place that we identified where it's automatically storing everything. So you can move your clips around, you can join them all here, and when you're all done, you do have to save it. I wish there were a more obvious way to save, because it's not necessarily obvious that we want to save it here. But if you choose to save it to Google Drive, you name it and it's going to save it as a new video, leaving the original videos the way that they were before. Or you could download it as an MP4, and that's also a very useful option. If you're going to put it in YouTube, probably easiest to just take it right from your Google Drive, and then when you go to YouTube, import it from YouTube, from your Google Drive to your YouTube. So at this point, the only other thing that I would point you to, again, in the written instructions that I created, which you can get to by going to the library page, going to the how-to instructions, how-to for teachers. I did include those links for Screencastify's own help, and then I put some extra resources at the bottom of this page. And one of the nicest ones is 50 ways to use Screencastify in the classroom. It really all has to do with using your computer as a camera. Using it as a camera for a speaker, using it as a camera even to show physical objects, manipulatives, to have students or teachers narrate what they're doing. There's some very good ideas here. A lot of it is a little bit repetitive because, well, if you're recording interviews, yes, you could record an interview. You could also record a podcast. You can record a lot of things. You could probably do the same thing with a camera. We're also finding out that you can do the same thing with Zoom. You might want to compare the different options that all these things give you. I think the big advantage of Screencastify is that it gives you very easy editing options, and that always makes things easier. So that's really all that I have to talk about today, and if you have any questions, please let me know.